noticed that Nick was online on Skype, and I sent him a note. You want to do the show? Sure. But not about Rendlesham, because he's been on the show several times about that, or UFOs. He is also interested in conspiracy theories. But he is a conspiracy theory skeptic. If you noticed last week and after the Paracast, he believes in some conspiracy theories, but he thinks that the JFK assassination was a lone gunman, that 9/11 is the result of miscommunication or interagency rivalry in the U.S., so we didn't pick up all the signals. If we had a better way of cooperating, if we had a Homeland Security Department at that time, which we did not, maybe we would have stopped it. But he's entitled to his opinion. I tend to think in a more conspiratorial fashion about JFK, but people are entitled to their opinion. But so far it seems that people are just dismissing Nick Pope out of hand and not listening to the episode. Chris, that, kind of disappoints me.
Well, a lot of times it's the people that have issues with a particular guest or a particular subject that they're, are going to speak up and make their displeasure known, where the vast majority of people maybe don't particularly like the guy, but they don't particularly dislike him either. They're just interested to hear what people in the field have to say. And, my whole adage is if you work for the government and you have a pension, you are handcuffed to a certain extent by the type of information you're exposed to. So you always have to take everything with a grain of salt from somebody who is an ex-astronaut, an ex-Air Force pilot, and the adage that I use a lot is once a spook, always spooky. So that being said, Nick is very smooth and very, slick and Teflon-like when it comes to discussing especially the UFO subject. And I think he's forced by circumstance to present a more conservative point of view, which may or may not reflect his true feelings about a particular subject. But once you're in the position of working in government service, you're beholden to that. And so you always have to take that into account when you're talking with the John Alexanders and the Edgar Mitchells. There are examples of people that appear to be stepping outside of that particular, generalization that I'm making. Walter Bosley kind of comes to mind, although, again, he'll tell you right out there's certain things he cannot talk to, sources and methods, for instance. So that being said, you got to give the guy a little bit of slack. I was not particularly thrilled about his involvement in the prediction of a UFO event at the London Olympics. I thought that was a little bit beneath him. They must have paid him a lot of money to do that for him to get involved, because that whole scenario seemed a little bit out of character, at least in my mind. I don't really know Nick that well, but I've had a chance to talk to him on a number of occasions. Of course, we've had him on the show a number of times. But, you do have to remember that the guests that create the complaints and the, pseudo hate mail, whatever you want to call it, every one of our guests are going to have detractors. And it's the ones that are the most vehement about their displeasure are the ones that are going to speak up and make it appear that it's a bigger deal than it really is. Because quite frankly, I don't care. I realize that there's people out there with opinions, and that's fine. And, I don't really care one way or another what a person thinks about me or any of our guests. That's their business. If they don't like what we do, they don't like how we do it, don't listen. I've gone through, one of the hardest years, definitely the hardest year of my adult life here the last, 13, 14 months. And people are taking exception to my particular attitude or whatever. Well, you know what you can do with that. I've been going through a lot. Gene's been going through a lot, and we're trying to put our best face forward. But at times it's difficult. And, there's been some detractors moaning and groaning about, oh, Chris is this and Chris is that. Or Gene's getting a new co-host. Yeah, whatever. I don't really care.
Okay, and I just tell you, I'm not going to go into details, but as some of our listeners know, I'm in the process of trying to find a new place to live because the landlord kind of took out the rug from under us and sold this place, and so we have to leave by a certain time, and if we don't, We're in a hotel or we're in the street. This happens to a lot of people. So we're busy looking for a new home while we're trying to do the show. One way or the other, the show gets done. I don't know from where, but that's my particular situation. We've all had problems. Chris has had tragedy and he's had illness, and that's how it goes. Now, when it comes to someone who works for the government, we understand the situation. If you're working in an area that entails some level of security clearance, you've got to do what you've got to do. But that doesn't make this person a bad person, because in a sense we're saying you work for the government, you got to be bad? No, you work for the government because maybe you like doing it. Maybe it was the job that was available. Maybe you think you're contributing to society by working in that government job. You're doing something that's good. And the question is does a Nick Pope, because he can't tell you things, and he tells you flat out, there are things I can't say related to national security. That was my job in the Ministry of Defense. We understand that, God and country and everything. It doesn't mean he's lying to you. It means he has to hold back. He has to be cautious in certain areas. But there still could be plenty of information there to evaluate, understanding the exceptions. But once again, anyone involved in a military agency, a defense agency, with possible security connections, what do you expect? I mean, they even said that Major Donald Kehoe, the big UFO pioneer, was a tool because he was a retired Marine Corps major. Of course, he'd been retired for many decades before he got into the UFO game, but there you go. In any case, we have Linda Godfrey. We're going to talk about the monsters among us. And it's not some of our guests. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
The award-winning Graphic Converter 10, the universal genius for photo editing apps on your Mac. Join over 1.5 million loyal users for the Swiss Army Knife app. It gives you all the features that you expect, and most important, it's easy to use. You can get it for just $39.95 from www.lemkesoft.com. That's www.lemkesoft.com. Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London. Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
There is an affordable alternative to the high cost of healthcare that offers freedom from insurance while providing compliance with the Obamacare individual mandate. Imagine having access to quality, affordable healthcare that allows you the freedom to choose your doctor and hospital. Members can share up to 100% of necessary medical expenses, including some alternative treatments. Find out how you and your family can contain healthcare costs without giving up your freedom. Go to libertyoncall.org. That's libertyoncall.org.
My name is Jay. I'm 26 years of age, and I just want to thank the makers of the One World Whey protein powder. After having chronic abdominal pain and pressure for months, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. The medical doctor told me there was nothing I could do to treat it, other than taking pain and nausea medication. Then I came across an ad for One World Whey on the radio and read the claims that it can help with all types of inflammation. I took the One World Whey protein powder every day for a month, and the chronic pain and pressure sensations went away completely. And I never took the pain or nausea meds. To this day, my intestines are free of pain.
Nature is kind. When we consume foods we're designed to eat, then she gives back health when it was once lost. One World Whey consistently supports the body's production of glutathione and overall repair. Glutathione stops inflammation, removes heavy metals, and toxins of all kind. When inflammation is gone, the body can complete its healing process. Call 888-988-3325 or visit oneworldwhey.com. That's oneworld, WHEY.com.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
On the Paracast this week, the topic is Monsters Among Us, and we're not talking about the monsters we hear in those political campaigns and at political conventions, because we can start a whole discussion that people do not want to hear, or anyone else. We've got someone who goes after monsters quite often, and that is Linda Godfrey. Welcome back to the Paracast.
Oh, I'm so glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Now, when it comes to monsters, and we'll get into the book in a moment, what's our fascination? Because obviously we like grotesque things that run around and that pick up little girls and throw them into the lake like the Frankenstein's monster did in the original movie with Boris Karloff, where he sees this little girl throwing flowers into the lake, and then he looks at her, smiles, and throws her into the lake. Remember that scene?
Yes.
We never actually see him throw her into the lake. We just see somebody carrying the dead girl later on, because in those days we didn't show the rather graphic nature of a monster film. It was always implied.
Which was scarier in a lot of ways.
Well,
to me, anyway.
Well, you see, in those days, too, and here's an example. In the original Dracula, which was a very tame movie, not the silent movie, but the one with Bela Lugosi, very tame movie, very slow-moving. When they did the stage play, remember, it was based on a stage play, okay? When they did the stage play, people were screaming as a result of this. When they did the movie, people were just, fainting in the aisles. We forget how people reacted. And then, nowadays, of course, monster movies are very graphic. Blood, gore, whatever. And what is our fascination with all that?
Well, I think if you asked a psychologist, you would get an answer something like, well, we like to exteriorize. That's a word that I see in that sort of situation quite often. We like to exteriorize or bring out of ourselves the fears we have about our own selves, our own actions, our own bodies, about being hurt and that kind of thing. We like to put it out in front of us and have it in one scary package where it looks human enough that we can relate to it, but it's just weird and gross and different enough that we can be scared witless over it. And that somehow helps us maintain a balance. I've seen variations on that explanation many times. And I think there's a certain amount of it that holds true, because so many of the people who write to me will oftentimes say, I felt like I was meant to see that, or like there was a message there for me, like there's something more going on than just some kind of a strange animal. And I think that we do find it entertaining because we like to put ourselves in the place of those people and think, what would I do? What would happen? If that had been me, would I have run? Whatever. In my books, I really am after a little more than just a scary story. I like to compare and contrast and just reflect and speculate, which means you know you're not doing any kind of scientific experiments, because of course you can't prove or disprove most of the things people see, but you can speculate and put things together and help people deal with things that really often do frighten them, quite often. And the thing that keeps me coming back to it is that so many people have these experiences. They can't all be hoaxes. They cannot all be just, somebody having a hallucination that's similar to some guy in Kentucky 2 states away that had the same quote-unquote hallucination, and they never heard of each other. They never saw whatever they were seeing in any other place, so there's no collaboration. So that's kind of the long, the long twisty answer. But people really do just enjoy getting a thrill and kind of a vicarious scare out of these incidents. And that's what first attracts them. And then as they learn more, they're usually more deeply caught by the mystery of it. And what are these things? Why are there so many? Why do they look kind of like us, but a lot worse? And I think that's what hooks people in.
That's a good point. And the variety, though, is what's kind of bewildering to me at times. There's so many different types and descriptions, and it just runs the gamut from A to Z in terms of the different types. How could something so pervasive and so, there's just so many different types, how could something like this exist in the physical world without being established as being physical? Are we dealing with something you think that's physical? I know it's hard to generalize, but I think there's a lot of commonalities between the various types of monsters that are reported out there. Do you think in general these things are physical, or they're paraphysical, or a combination of both? Or
I think more and more that there's something paraphysical or otherworldly about them, and I hate to say paranormal, because then people are thinking, ooh, ghosts, and it's really not like that. It seems that they have this uncanny, very widespread collective intelligence that, and I say that because people say the same thing no matter where they see it in the world, or what the creature is. They'll feel like the creature is aware of them, that in a way that it shouldn't be if it were just a wild animal, that it knows something about them, that it kind of speaks to them maybe empathically, not like hearing words in your head or any of the mental illness type of symptoms, but just that they feel it's communicating with them somehow. And the messages are so similar that people receive, it just doesn't seem like it can be something natural that we know of, at least not that we've ever seen, in our zoology books. It's something completely different. And there are more. My newest book, The Monsters Among Us, is kind of based on this. After 25 years of collecting reports, almost 25 years of collecting these reports and writing the books and interviewing the witnesses and looking at them all. At first, the ones that seemed to have that paraphysical aspect, maybe transforming or maybe turning invisible or just suddenly vanishing or that kind of thing, it seemed like I was getting more and more of them. In the beginning, I got very few, and it was kind of easy to shuffle them off into another pile and not really do too much with them. And then the last few years, it seems like suddenly people are mentioning that they have seen anomalous lights beforehand. They're saying that the creatures vanished or were invisible, or the bullets bounced off them even though they had direct hit with a semi-automatic weapon. Things that should be really impossible if these were just timber wolves walking upright, some type of unknown primate, some type of giant leftover bird.
One of my favorite, very interesting reports was from the mid-'70s, I think in 75 in Montana, where a Bigfoot was seen by, I think, a girl and her brother outside in the yard or something. And I think one of them pretended to shoot it with a gun, and it very theatrically clutched its chest, fell down, and then got up and walked away.
We have to walk away too, guys. We have to walk away for a second with Linda, Godfrey, and Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Sling bow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of sling bow. A new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
This is an alert. If your business or church is building this year, you're about to pay more than you should. This could mean thousands of dollars more for your office, retail space, church, or warehouse. A General Steel building can save you as much as half the cost and time of similar conventional construction. And we're offering rebates of up to $20,000 to help you build today. Call General Steel for free information that could save you thousands. Call 866-91-STEEL. 866-91-STEEL. 866-91-STEEL.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Have you ever thought you'd like to flip houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? Are you ready to be your own boss so you can start living the good life? Hi, I'm Preston Ely. I used to be so broke. I had my electricity turned off 9 times, but I figured out a way to quit my job and find financial freedom in real estate. For a limited time, I want to send you a free copy of my smash hit selling book, How to Get Rich in Real Estate. It shows you how to copy exactly what I did so you can make money from the comfort of your own home without even doing any manual labor. I've already given away 5,000 books and they're going fast. To get one before they're gone, call 1-800-958-9859. Listen, if you're sick and tired of stressing about money, this book could change your life. It's short, fun to read, easy to understand, and awesome. To find out how to get your free book while supplies last, call 1-800-958-9859. Call 1-800-958-9859. 1-800-958-9859.
Dangerous blood clot device alert. If you or a loved one had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to your heart or lungs and suffered an injury, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, and even death. These dangerous blood clot devices can break, and the metal fragments can travel to your heart or lungs, causing serious injuries. If you or a loved one suffered organ damage or other injuries from an IVC filter, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Act now. Time is limited to file a claim. For a free consultation and free information, call Injury Help Desk at 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. This is an advertisement. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. InjuryHelpDesk.com is responsible for this advertisement. Principal office, Las Vegas, Nevada.
This is Leslie Kane, and I'm with the Coalition for Freedom of Information, and you are listening to the Paracast.
Now, in our first segment, we were mentioning the fact that Nick Pope talked about conspiracy theories in last week's After the Paracast. But the only way you can hear that show, to see if you like it or not, if you agree with his theories or not, is to subscribe to the Paracast Plus at plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com. Now, what do we give you there? Well, we give you the After the Paracast podcast, which is special interviews, show wrap-ups, anything that comes to our mind. And we also offer this show, the Paracast, commercial-free, better quality audio, some transcripts, classic episodes, and more. The subscription price, cheap. Our price, cheap. Month to month. Annual, 5-year, lifetime. Go to plus.theparacast.com. The book is Monsters Among Us, Linda Godfrey. The subtitle is an exploration of otherworldly Bigfoots, wolfmen, portals, phantoms, and odd phenomena. I use the word otherworldly. So you're telling us here, you're framing this, Linda, as something where these creatures, whatever they are not of this planet, this dimension, what?
Well, I particularly chose the word world because it specifically refer to a planet or a dimension or anything. It's a world is something that a human can be in and perceive as an environment outside him or herself. Okay, so a world could be another dimension, another planet. Here on planet Earth, we usually refer to the world as what we see immediately around us. But if it's another world, and some people have claimed to see into what they thought were portals where it looked like you would be able to step into it and experience it as a world that you could live and breathe and walk around in. So these other worlds are just different habitats and environments, and perhaps we would not be able to move or perceive anything or even exist in any of these other worlds. But it seems to me that there is just enough evidence that's both anecdotal and also some physical evidence, like footprints that start in the middle of a field, walk toward a woods and vanish, or that walk and meet another creature and then one disappears, things like that. You start seeing that enough and you think, this is not normal. This is not Earth, Terra, normal. Something is going on. Hey, maybe did I just coin a word, Terra normal?
Terra normal. I like that, Chris. What do you think?
Sounds like a good band name.
The Terra Normal. I can see that now. Chris, that's a band for you. Your next band is the Terra Normal. Linda, do you play music?
Terra Abnormal.
The Terra Abnormal. Or as they say from people who enjoy the film Young Frankenstein, the Terra Abbey Normal.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But I think I may have to copyright that. So you'll just have to catch me later, Chris, and we'll talk about the band.
I'd be in the band, the Terra Abnormal.
Okay, Linda, do you play a musical instrument? We're trying to recruit members here.
No, nothing you'd want to hear. I did sing. I had a vocal minor in college, and I did sing, but mostly like classical type stuff.
Well, that hasn't stopped other singers from becoming rockers, right?
That's true. I know plenty of pop songs. Yeah, I still sing a little bit. Not like I used to. I mean, my coloratura range is gone, but I still have some fun.
Singing in the shower, probably.
Singing in the shower, a little karaoke. Jeff Ballinger and I did a really mad rendition of "I Got You, Babe" after one of the Chicago Paracons.
Oh boy!
So, he said, "Remind me never to do this again." When we got
I never could figure out who was singing, Cher or Sonny.
I know they sounded just alike.
So similar.
Well, the worst thing that happened here is I think Cher had a really good singing voice, and then it deepened. Yes. And I think she lost her higher register. I bet she blew it out.
Yes, that's what happens. Yeah, because she was throat singing a lot of the time.
Now, I'll tell you who has blown out his voice, and it's really sad. Paul McCartney is very raspy these days. He's nowhere like what he was in the old days. I mean, he had this amazing voice, but he was shouting and screaming and trying to be Little Richard, and you can't live that way.
No. When I was in college, I wanted to also go out for cheerleading, and my voice professor said, absolutely not. If you want to sing in the choir, you want to sing here. If you want to be a vocal minor, you may not be a cheerleader because you'll blow your voice out. pretty much word for word.
Oh, well.
So, yeah, so now I just go out in the woods and scream for Bigfoot. So I don't have to worry about wrecking my voice anymore.
That and a little tree thumping.
Once in a while, I did have an astounding experience last week that I never thought I would have, involving the rock clacking thing. It was something, they're said to pick up a rock in each hand and then clack them together.
Yeah.
And I always thought it just didn't seem that would be a really effective thing for them to do. I always wondered about it. It wasn't that I thought it couldn't be. I had my doubts, and I'd never really known anyone personally who had experienced it. And I had a friend from the Unknown Creature Spot, which is the Facebook page where I started it as a Yahoo page 10 years ago, and I still hang out there the most. And somebody who wanted to come up and go out with me on some trails, she'd never done this before at all. And we hiked back I took her to one of the easier trailheads in the Kettle Moraine. And I thought, well, we'll just do a little introductory. We'll walk around. We'll see if we see any of the, huts or any of the branch constructions, that kind of thing. And we happened to pass, looked like a tractor path that kind of veered off away from the main trail. And something about it just made me think we should walk down there, which is usually where I get into big trouble. So we walked in a ways, and sure enough, there was the big X formed by pulling up another sapling about the size of the first sapling and then making them bend and cross and kind of fastening together. And that's generally thought in Bigfoot circles to mean this is your limits. You don't want it here. Don't go beyond this X. And the woman who was with me had brought some couple little nature-friendly snacks, little fruit, just a couple of things. And she set it down by the X, and we heard this click, 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 clack, click, clack, very sharp and very close. I mean, this wasn't a distant thing. And she didn't hear it. I have pretty sensitive hearing, and I heard that one, but she heard the next one. The next one was coming from a different direction behind her. And that she heard. And then she heard another one. It sounded like there were 2 or 3 different locations. And when they were clicking, it sounded like Morse code. It did. It was like click, click, clack, clack, click, click, clack, clack, click. And of course, I had just, when she put the food down, I had said out loud, okay, I'm putting my camera away if you want to do it. Because honestly, that is when things happen, which is they won't do anything so often. If there anything big that's ever happened to me, I haven't had the camera with me or on. So I had put my cell phone camera in my pocket. That's when it started, and this kept up, for several minutes, and we started feeling freaked out. We didn't have rocks to answer them with, and I'm not sure that's wise anyway because you don't know what they're saying. And it could be, eat me. I'm the one. I've tasted the best. Or what? I'm just joking because I don't think Bigfoot eat people, but you just don't know. So we started walking out, and all this time I've been thinking, well, could it be a woodpecker? We have lots of woodpeckers in my neighborhood, and I know what they sound like, and it wasn't. I knew that.
Before we learn more about Woody, the woodpecker, it ages me that I even remember a character like that. We've got Linda Godfrey, Monsters Among Us with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails T-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo tote bag, all sorts of T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great T-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. If you go to store.theparacast.com, stop by and take a shopping tour.
Attention backpackers on a budget. Why spend $80 to $300 to pump clean survival water? Introducing the Viva Water Pump Kit from Viva Outdoor Products. Super easy to use and super lightweight at only 6.5 ounces, the Viva Water Pump Kit provides high flow rate at 1 ounce per stroke, can be one-hand pumped, and is dependable and affordable at only $24.99, filter not included. Get your Viva Water Pump Kit at viba-odp.com from Viva Outdoor Products.
No other network provides the level of customer service we do. When it comes to radio advertising, we are your one-stop shop. And no matter how big or small your business is, we can help. Email us at advertise@gcnlive.com, and an experienced advertising executive will help you take the first step towards driving more customers to your business or website. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective, multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
This is a healthcare alert from the Pain Relief Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You don't have to suffer any longer. You can immediately qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you by calling our 24/7 Pain Relief Hotline at 866-389-0620. Delivery is free and all paperwork is handled for you. If you are on Medicare and have knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain, don't wait. You can qualify to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost by calling our 24/7 Pain Hotline now at 866-389-0620. Our representatives are standing by 24/7 to take your call and rush you your pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and all paperwork is handled for you. Just call 866-389-0620. That's 866-389-0620. Again, 866-389-0620.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Hi, this is Bryce Abel. I'm the producer of Dark Skies, the co-author of AD After Disclosure, and you are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So I look into the mirror, as I said before, I see the monster. Linda Godfrey, chasing monsters. And where do we go? When you look down these things, and you look down these reports of monsters, I've asked you this question before, but we should mention it because we always have new listeners. How do you vet the stories for people who just telling stories?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I'm often asked. I'm going to take 1 second and just tell you one more thing about that experience with the rock clicks, if you don't mind.
Okay, this was not Woody Woodpecker then.
No, it was not Woody Woodpecker, because whatever these things were, they followed us out all the way back to the end of this lane, pacing us on either side of the lane. Woodpeckers would not do that. They'll be in one spot. They're very staccato. They have a certain sound. And when they're hammering on a tree, they're not following you out of a woods. That was the freakiest part. That was what let me know this was something really, really unusual, because there's nothing else that does that.
I hope your friend brought an extra pair of Depends. Because first timers don't always react well to situations like that. Either that or they're just ignorant of what could be going on, which actually could be a blissful thing for some people. But if she had any idea what could possibly have been going on, I bet you she would have been a little bit frightened.
She was astonished and I think really nervous about it and didn't feel well for a couple of days. So, I was actually amazed because I just wasn't sure that it was a real phenomena, and I had it proved pretty well to me that it's exactly what people say. They were keeping out of sight well behind the trees and the bushes, but I just can't imagine what else it would have been. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to get that in. But as to your other question about how do you vet the tales, that's a really important question, because I think especially now where there's been in the past few years kind of a little explosion of sites about dogmen and Bigfoot and other things where every week there's a new person saying, yep, I saw it, I'm going to collect stories, send your stories to me, and there's more and more of them. And oftentimes I think what happens is somebody sends in a report, it gets just thrown up on the screen or whatever it is. Not all of them, but sometimes that happens. Or there isn't really a way often to vet, say, a first-time caller who's calling in and has this thing to present. You don't know what they're going to say, and it may end up being something that seems really outlandish compared to the general bulk of other sightings of that type. So I'm just saying I think it's a little more difficult the more reports that are out there. On the other hand, there's more to compare to, and you can get kind of a sense of what is in general keeping, not that they'll have to be identical, but in general keeping with most of the other things. And that is where, having done this for 25 years, it gives me a little bit of an advantage, because there are just certain tones of voice, certain style phrasing, certain attitudes that are taken by the people who are writing that make me just stop and go, and I have gone so far as to ask people outright if they're lying to me. I had one small group of young guys who claimed they had seen two beasts on Bray Road, and I asked them each that separately, and they both, there were actually three of them, they all said no, they were telling the truth, but I wasn't terribly convinced, and then it turned out that they were making it up. So it does happen. I'm helped a bit by the fact that before I started writing the books, I still had my day job at the newspaper, interviewing 1 to 3 people a week for 10 years. That adds up to a lot of people. And when you talk to that many people, you get a sense for when someone's just giving it to you from the heart, or they're being calculating, or they're outright just kind of fabricating.
Right. The simple things like eye contact, yes, nervousness, looking to the left. I mean, there are signs. Having interviewed several thousand people myself over the years, you tend to get a real good, I think, sixth sense about someone, how earnest they are. I look for certain phraseology, there's key things that I kind of zero in on that sort of pushes positive buttons, just right, as there's certain things that push would throw up red flags and push negative buttons as well. But yeah, I think it's pretty easy once you've been out in the field as long as someone like yourself to be able to determine fairly quickly and accurately whether a person is being upfront and honest, whether they're hiding something, or whether they're just totally confabulating something.
Well, I was just going to say, now I'm starting to forget what I was going to say. Please go ahead. It'll come back to me.
We're here to confuse matters. That's the thing. But in vetting people who are making up stories, do you think the fact that we have so many reality shows on TV, and maybe people want their 15 minutes, they're more inclined to make up stuff?
Yeah. Yes, I do. And I think that, again, has been kind of one of the unfortunate side effects of the explosion of reports, because they do show up on so many of these quote-unquote reality shows. But there is another avenue, too, that having been a newspaper reporter, I know how to look things up and check people out online and other places, And so when a person gives me a story, I will go and check out the details of the location, to see if they know what they're talking about or they were just making up street names or whatever. If they mention other places or other people, I will be able to do that. There was one spectacular story in Monsters Among Us that you gentlemen may remember, and maybe you're planning to bring this up later, but where an incident happened in a church, and I was able to actually track down the minister. It was several years ago. I was able to track down the minister of that church at the time. He wouldn't speak to me, which was sort of telling in itself. But, I was able to locate the church and the minister and all these other things that they had said as part of their story. And they also signed a statement for the publisher with their names and contact information and the statement that, to the best of their knowledge, all statements of theirs were true and factual.
For the sake of our listeners who aren't familiar with that particular account of this transformation, for lack of a better word, why don't you give us a sort of an overview of the claim and then continue with some of the supplemental stuff that you were able to dig up?
Yeah, this was one where it was a middle-aged couple that came to me, just salt of the earth people, feel like, your next door neighbors, like you've known them all your life. And I met with them several times in person. I had my husband come along, too, because of the nature of their claim, which was that they were sitting in the front row in church some years ago in Illinois, and a woman who was also sitting in the front row, they had sort of a U-shaped pew arrangement, so they were not shoulder to shoulder exactly, but they were looking more directly at her, turned into a full-fledged, old-fashioned style werewolf right in front of their eyes. And it was an average-sized woman, but they said she went, and it was almost an instantaneous transition. It wasn't like the snout popping out and the hair coming and the fur covering the body and the fangs and everything popping. They said she kind of twisted her neck once. She let out this horrendous, otherworldly scream. And then the next thing they knew, they were staring at a wolf, the figure of a wolf covered with fur. He drew a very great witness sketch of it. And the odd thing was that it didn't have paws, it had hoofs. It was a wolf with hoofs. So this was the thing. And I mean, something like that, I felt I really needed to check out. And I did. They told me where the church was, but that it had been demolished. And I went and was able to find that it was indeed there and there were records. As I said, I spoke to the minister. There were other details of the story that I was able to find and confirm. And then also the fact that they both signed this document, which is sort of intimidating when it's for a very large publisher and it's part of their legal apparatus, and they didn't even blink about signing it. So I believe them very well.
How soon after the alleged event did they decide to demolish the church?
Yeah, I don't think it was very long.
Probably an hour.
Yeah.
We're going to get rid of this now, folks. It's just too late. It's going to be too late if we don't do our break. It's Monsters Among Us with Linda Godfrey. And Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest priced filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to goberkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. goberkey.com.
Cancer categorizes over 100 diseases. Though we do not diagnose, treat, or cure cancer, GCN team is offering the Clemson University study where there was up to a 95% reduction in cancerous cells when exposed to a plant-derived mineral supplement. If you or a loved one are searching for answers to this horrifying disease, come to GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. We'll email you a copy for free. That's 877-878-4203.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
I think when Chris does that voice, he's in the process of turning to the werewolf.
There you go.
Or I think of the song Werewolves of London from Warren Zevon. I always thought when he wrote that song, he was blasted because it has that kind of lyric.
Yeah, but I love it. I love that song.
I think I found out where Matt Groening came up with the idea of Homer Simpson going dough, because at the end of the song he's dough. He lets out a dough, which sounds just like Homer Simpson, but years before, of course.
You're totally right. I'll tell you a little interesting aside. 10 years ago, I bought a new car. It was a Toyota Corolla, a red Toyota Corolla. Now I have a blue Toyota Corolla because that red one was completely totaled 3 months after I got it while that song was playing on the radio. Somebody came over a hill super fast as I was making a left turn and just T-boned me, basically.
Oh, boy, you're lucky.
I am, and that was the song. Werewolves of London was playing on the radio at that moment.
You'll never want to hear that song again.
But, it didn't change. No, I still love the song, and I still wish I could have gotten a red car, but I needed one right away, and they gave me the blue one instead. So the car I could change that, but the song wouldn't change a word ever.
Well, red cars get more tickets than any other color car,
I've heard that. But they're also safer because you can see them coming on the road more easily. And it was a red car that hit my red car. Seriously.
I've only had one red car in my life. It was the worst car I ever had. This was a Pontiac Tempest, like the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh, I remember those.
It was equipped to the nines. It was red with a black interior. And within 1,000 miles, the transmission started leaking oil and had to be rebuilt. But the thing is here, the license plate, you ready for this? Mm-hmm. I've done this since then, and everybody told me not to do it. Chris, Brad Steiger, everything. My license plate for this Pontiac Tempest, 3MIB.
Did you get a lot of weird looks, or did the MIB start following you?
Well, I think it was a situation where most people didn't know.
Yeah, we're going back a few decades.
Oh, you're right. It wasn't as well known.
Unless you were a Gray Barker fan or maybe read some Keel or something.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Valet mentioned him, I think, in Messengers of Deception in '79. But still, that's where as far back as Gene's going with this. So what year of Tempest was it?
It was 69 or 70.
Okay, it's not that.
It was a lease car. I got on a 2-year lease. And I worked out something with the dealer after a year because the thing was just defective. It just had problems. The transmission was the least of it. It was also a rattle trap.
The Pontiac, right?
Pontiac.
Oh, terrible cars. Pontiacs and Buicks, stay away. Be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get back to we were talking about this explosion of crypto shows that none of which I've ever seen. By the way, I maybe watched 5 minutes of one and then 5 minutes of another, and to me they're so hokey, they're so unbelievable. It just I don't know. I don't see the attraction. They're always hunting something, but they never find anything. Of course.
Yeah.
Where do you come down on these shows? I'm sure you've had some offers to do shows, and you've probably appeared on, as a talking head on many. But these reality shows, to me, do you think that they're helping this whole field, or do you think they're just generating interest that creates these fanciful stories that just waste your time?
Well, I think that second thought of creating the fanciful stories definitely has grown out of a lot of those shows. And for sure there are people who just really want to be on TV and would make something up, if they thought they could. Yeah, it's sort of a mixed blessing. On one hand, they've drawn a lot of attention to the field. On the other hand, the attention hasn't always been the kind that we would want to have. And it can get downright silly. And I don't know how many I've done. It started almost immediately 25 years ago. Inside Edition came out, and the first sci-fi show. There were all kinds of different shows. So I've lost track. I really don't know how many I've been on. It's been a lot. And some of the best ones, Monster Quest, I think was a very class show.
I agree.
And
that's one of
even
the
though
few.
They never caught the animal either. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I was on 2 full episodes of Monster Quest. The first one, American Werewolf, was based on my book, Hunting the American Werewolf, and I even had production credit because I did do field production for them. And even though they didn't catch the monster, they tried such an interesting variety of ways, and were really, I think, very smart about finding the best equipment. And if you could do it with technical means, they should have been able to, which I think is also an important conclusion to come to, that, maybe we're not going to find these answers with just technology. Right. Maybe it's going to take something else and another approach. Sean Hannity's America was another one that they came out. They had no technical equipment. They just did a basic, very quick, very truthful assessment of several episodes or several incidents, and I thought they did a great job. It's another one of my favorites. You don't need all the silly bells and whistles. There was another one, probably my least favorite was James. I'm a Trekkie, and why can't I think of his last name?
James Doohan was Scotty.
No, I'm thinking of James T. Kirk.
Oh, James Tiberius Kirk, yes. William Shatner.
William Shatner. It was Shatner's Weird or What.
Oh, yeah, those guys, they're too.
And that was, it was just so concocted. They had me standing on top of a hill in front of a white teepee. I don't know why. And inside the teepee behind me, you could see there was a bed spread with a deer hide spread across it. And they had 2 other people who were actors pretending to be researchers that they had pretty much quoting almost verbatim out of my one of my books as to giving what they thought were leading theories on these creatures. And then they asked me the question, how would I explain what most Native Americans thought, and I explained some conversations that I'd had with some Native Americans. And then when they ran it, they put those 2 guys in as the leading researchers, and then they had me. And if I'm totally ignorant, by the way, and you're one of those people, and you really were a leading researcher, and I just didn't know you, forgive me, because I don't know everybody. But they were using theories that I had put forth in my book anyway. So then for me, they said, and Linda Godfrey believes, and then they cut right into making it seem like I only believed exactly what the Native Americans believe, which I kind of do in a way, but I wouldn't say it's the only valid theory that there is.
No. Well, that's Hollywood for you. I mean, I've had, I think actually Weird or What was a Toronto production, Canadian. I did one of their episodes as well, and they actually did a good job with me. I was fortunate. But some of the other shows I've heard have just been awful. And I do want to go back and kind of state my comment about the monster shows. Monster Quest, I thought, I've seen several episodes of that, and I mean, they really, you could tell they were really trying to do a good, proper job without putting undue spin and stuff. I saw the one on the Ropin, which I found very fascinating, the flying, alleged flying reptile in New Guinea. And I found that very compelling. But some of these shows are just, I mean, they'll Franken-quote you. They'll have you actually say the exact opposite of what you did, which happened to me in two statements that I, with horror, saw myself making on Conspiracy Theory, the Jesse Ventura show, where they actually had me say the exact opposite of what I actually did say. And I said, well, I can't confirm that there were 2 deaths on the Skinwalker Ranch, and they had me saying, I can confirm there were 2 deaths on the Skinwalker Ranch.
I want to ask about that, Chris, in our next segment, just how they managed to do that, other than pulling words and phrases out of someone's statement or just taking words and swapping them. The Word Swappers. That's a new book. The Word Swappers will attack you tomorrow. That too. Right. We'll patent that one, too. We've got Linda Godfrey, who's writing down all these names and going to call her lawyer after we finish. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast. The award-winning Graphic Converter 10, the universal genius for photo editing apps on your Mac. Join over 1.5 million loyal users for the Swiss Army Knife app. It gives you all the features that you expect, and most important, it's easy to use. You can get it for just $39.95 from www.lemkesoft.com. That's www.lemkesoft.com. Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joel Wallach, the Dead Doctors Don't Lie guy, formerly Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, Air National Guard and Reservist. I'm looking for veterans, active duty military personnel to join the 90 for Life crusade to save America. She needs your skills, courage, and loyalty more than ever. Contact GCNteam.com. Because of the financial and healthcare collapse, veterans are currently struggling finding jobs. Frustrated looking for a job? Change your tactics. Join the 90 for Life crusade to save America. Start a healthcare business with FDI Longevity 90 for Life crusade. Contact GCNteam.com immediately. We're looking for military specialists who can use a computer and communicate information and execute a battle plan. Join the admirals, Navy SEALs, Marines, pilots, Army officers, military police, sheriffs, police officers, firemen, and first responders already enrolled in the 90 for Life crusade. Contact GCNteam.com now. FDI Longevity will help you apply your military skills to the task of saving America through health and financial programs. Contact GCNteam.com. Enlist in GCNteam.com and save America.
We use mobile devices right against our bodies every day, but growing scientific evidence has emerged showing serious health risks associated with exposure to EMF radiation emitted from these devices. The solution is Defender Shield, the most effective mobile radiation shielding ever developed. Defender Shield blocks virtually 100% of EMF radiation from cell phones, tablets, and laptops, and starts at just $64.99. Buy now at DefenderShield.com. For 10% off, use promo code GCN. DefenderShield.com, the worldwide leader in mobile radiation shielding.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson. Injury Help Desk is responsible for this advertisement. Principal office, Las Vegas, Nevada. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention prescription antibiotic drug users. Have you or a loved one suffered an aortic dissection, aortic aneurysm, or abdominal aortic aneurysm after taking the prescription antibiotic drugs Levaquin or Avelox? These popular antibiotic drugs have been prescribed more than 80 million times since 2004, and medical studies show an increased risk of the following injuries: aortic dissection, aortic aneurysm, and abdominal aortic aneurysm. If you or a loved one used the prescription antibiotic drugs Levaquin or Avelox and suffered from aortic dissection, aortic aneurysm, or abdominal aortic aneurysm, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Act now. Time is limited to file a claim. You may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. For a free consultation and free information, call Injury Help Desk at 800-823-3851. 800-823-3851. 800-823-3851.
This is David Cordani, CEO of Cigna. For more than 20 years, Cigna has worked with the March of Dimes to address premature births in the U.S. Premature births cause horrible suffering and cost billions of dollars each year. That's why Cigna is committed to raising funds and awareness through our employees, family, and friends to improve the health of moms and babies. Please join us in supporting the March for Babies. Start your team today at marchforbabies.org.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So, Chris, how do they take can't into can without physically altering the word or substituting a word?
Well, when you have an hour-and-a-half interview, you can pick and choose words everywhere. And the secret is to look at the sections where they have a B-roll or some sort of a cut-to image going with you doing the voiceover. Then they can easily manipulate any sort of languaging. It's obviously much more difficult if they're showing you saying the words. Then it's obviously much more difficult for you. Don't want it to look like What's Up, Tiger Lily or some badly dubbed Japanese sci-fi movie or something. The other one, the other thing that they said was that, again, I said, I think aliens is the least likely answer. And they had me saying aliens are the most likely answer or something like that. It's been a while. Oh, yeah. I got very, very upset. And, of course, that made certain individuals within the intelligence community and a famous L.A. reporter and a couple of physicists, one attached to a behavioral modification expert for an alphabet agency. I mean, I had to do a couple of weeks of serious damage control over that. And I did mention it on the show here. I was very, very... And, of course, they, as a result of the way the series was treated by the network and, of course, Robert Bigelow's possible influence behind the scenes, they canceled their most popular show in the history of the network.
Wow.
So it does happen, so be very careful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and here's another egregious example. I was on a show talking about the Beast of Bray Road and things that happened on Bray Road, and they took a clip from a colleague of mine, a good friend who was talking about a completely different creature in a completely different state and area, and they cut to him, and he said, yeah, people were running screaming out of the woods. Well, people are never running screaming out of the woods on Bray Road. It just doesn't work like that. It's a very different place, and it was a completely different reference, and yet if you were watching it, you'd say, wow, on Bray Road there's people coming screaming out of the woods.
Yeah. Well, anything to sensationalize a particular episode and make it even more compelling. I mean, they really, and it's, I must say, Linda, it's been getting worse. Yes. Early on, I did Inside Edition as you did in the 90s, early 90s. I think there was a little bit more journalistic integrity.
Yes.
Back in the 90s. The show Sightings, I felt really tried to do a good job with their coverage. A lot of these shows, because there's so much competition now, I think they're trying to one-up each other. And like you said, I mean, it does increase the amount of interest out there. It makes more people aware of the subject matter. It creates a potential for more people looking, more people being potential witnesses. But it creates, like you said, this this Andy Warholian, I need my 15 minutes of fame complex that a lot of people have in this celebrity-obsessed culture that we find ourselves wallowing in. How many butt implants have been, done by plastic surgeons since Kim Kardashian? I mean, you could go with many examples of how the treatment of culture by the media and the creation of stereotypes and glorifying body parts and other things has a real impact on people that may be susceptible to that kind of conditioning. There's no doubt about it.
And there's also money. People, or the mistaken perception of money. People who don't really know what the going salaries are for regular cast members on a lot of those reality shows, which is not anywhere near what you might think, unless you've got a huge golden smash hit for a long time or something. No. But I mean, it's barely a working year's salary, and you'd have to leave all your insurance and that kind of thing in most cases. Yeah. And the same with the books. Yeah. People think, well, I can write a book about Kraken or something and get $1 million. I hear that all the time. People expect that if they can just drum up some material somewhere and put together a book and, slap it together on the internet, that they're going to get rich. And they look and see I've written 16, 17 books, and they're usually very disappointed when I tell them at best I've replaced one of either two incomes. One was, the advance is not, they're thinking, oh, you're getting like, $1 million ahead of time. And it's not. I'm not complaining, because I went into this with eyes wide open that it was probably not going to be a lucrative field, given that it's a limited genre in terms of readers. And I probably replaced my income teaching art and library 2 days a week at a tiny little school, which is what I did for a while after I quit the newspaper to write books, because I still needed the extra income to fill the family coffers. Although my husband has always been our main support, and I would not have been able to do what I've done without him being a major breadwinner. I have to say that. I'm not by any means anywhere close to being able to support myself, let alone, a household. Yeah,
and that's unfortunate. I mean, back when these subjects were just starting to gain some traction in the early to mid-'90s, there were some large advances being thrown about. Stephen Greer, I think, got $60,000 for a book I don't think he ever to deliver to HarperCollins. There were some examples of that kind of old dynamic of editors going out on a limb with projects, but that's totally changed now.
Yes, I've never gotten anywhere near that for an advance.
Yeah, Amazon is doing to the publishing business what iTunes has done to the music business, and Spotify and Napster, 10 years ago. Having said that, I mean, obviously you have a passion for the subject matter.
Oh, I do, yes.
And that's enough of a reward to get it out of your system, to get this information out there. And I really can identify with that, because that's the only thing that and just badgering is the only thing that gets me to really write and produce. Yeah. It's a little bit easier for you, I can tell.
Well, the writing is always hard work. I mean, I have to trick myself into it sometimes. I'll say, well, I have to write a paragraph before I go to bed, and it can be really bad. I don't care. And then usually when I ease my pressure that way, even just for a little temporary thing, it'll start getting a little easier, and I'll end up with 5 pages before I go to that kind of thing. I play little head tricks with myself all the time. Writing, any author will tell you, research is fun. Writing is work.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'll tell you something. I used to write those computer books, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Using an iMac or something like that. And you had to produce a book of 300 to 400 pages in 6 to 7 weeks. And when you write a book on the paranormal, you can spend years. But 6 to 7 weeks. And I had a regimen. Every day I had to do this. And one day I woke up and I was just about to start a new project. And I could not put a single word to paper. This is after 30 books like this. And I wasn't making a lot of money, although some of my early books earned out, which means it earns more than the advance, and you start getting money. I remember one time, I think I got a royalty one year of one book of like $60,000. And I thought, you know what? If I could do a couple of these a year, I'd be in really good shape. A couple of those a year. Hey, what a difference, man. We got Linda Godfrey, and we got Chris O'Brien, and we got Gene Steinberg, and you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Worried about lead, fluoride, and other contaminants in your drinking water? Get a ProPure with the Pro 1G 2.0 cleanable reusable filter and remove up to 200 contaminants. Drink water the way nature meant it to be. Clean, crisp, and refreshing. See the complete line of ProPure products, including the new ProMax shower filter. There's a ProPure for you. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer for details or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com.
My computer is so slow, it's making me crazy.
I used to have that problem.
Did you quit using a computer, or did you buy a new one?
No, I called Geeks On Site. They made an appointment to visit my home and showed up the same day.
You mean they didn't ask you to bring your computer to a shop? That's what happened when I called a support company.
Geeks On Site can go to your home or business or even repair your computer online. They have 24/7 emergency service.
If you're having problems with your PC or Mac, call Geeks On Site, 1-800-591-1682. Our friendly certified computer repair experts are available 24/7. Call now for a free diagnosis, 1-800-591-1682. Data recovery, virus removal, and maintenance for all laptops, desktops, printers, and networks. That's Geeks On Site for friendly certified computer repair experts, available 24/7 over the phone or in your home or business. Just call 1-800-591-1682. That's 1-800-591-1682, 1-800-591-1682.
Did you know that a dirty CPAP system can make you sick? If you knew what could be growing in your mask and hose, you might not sleep so well. But now, SoClean.com has released the world's first and only automated CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. It kills 99.9% of all CPAP germs, and it's completely hands-free. For a limited time, you can try SoClean risk-free for 30 days. Just call 1-800-952-2797.
SoClean changed the CPAP experience for the better. My health has improved. It's simple to use, and I'm not worried about infections.
SoClean destroys CPAP bacteria, viruses, and germs, and it eliminates the daily hassle of washing your system by hand. There's no water, chemicals, or disassembly. Just pop in your mask, close the lid, and presto, your CPAP system is clean and fresh in minutes. Call SoClean.com to try it risk-free at home for 30 days. This is a limited time offer, only available by calling 1-800-952-2797. That's 1-800-952-2797.
Dangerous blood clot device alert. If you or a loved one had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to your heart or lungs and suffered an injury, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, and even death. These dangerous blood clot devices can break, and the metal fragments can travel to your heart or lungs, causing serious injuries. If you or a loved one suffered organ damage or other injuries from an IVC filter, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Act now. Time is limited to file a claim. For a free consultation and free information, call Injury Help Desk at 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. This is an advertisement. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. InjuryHelpDesk.com is responsible for this advertisement. Principal office, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hi, this is Nick Pope. You're listening to the Paracast.
So if you think after writing all those books I'm broke, well, it's because you never get enough. It's like an endless train, and you have to sometimes jump off the train. And this was like in the early aughts, 2005, 2006, just before the Paracast started. And I wasn't getting as many assignments because there weren't as many. And I woke up and said, I've got to find something else to do because I can't handle that anymore. I don't know if I burned out. I just think it was this kind of stuff where I'm doing the same work that requires no creativity, whatever. It's all formula.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although some of those how-to books for dummies and whatever are kind of humorous and funny. I mean, I've enjoyed some of them. I require them because I'm really bad on my own at those things.
Well, one of my friends who comes on another radio show of mine, the Tech Night Owl Live, is Bob Levitas. And he writes a lot of the Mac for Dummy type titles, like the iPad for Dummies and all this stuff. He writes with a guy named Ed Begg from USA Today, the tech guy over there. So I still keep up with what these guys are doing, but there aren't too many of them. We got to really talk about the monsters, though, because people will criticize us. Why are you talking about book writing anyway? We're talking about a book about monsters. Of the monsters you chased to put this book together, which one was the most frightening? The one that maybe would keep you up at night because you had to have the lights on and everything. No night lights. That wouldn't make it either.
Yeah, well, that church werewolf was that was really one of the worst and the most startling encounters that I've ever come across. You could not disbelieve the witnesses. But I have another one in there. Most of them are about dogmen or creatures like that, but there are a few about Bigfoot, and it is one of the most, I think, gripping Bigfoot or Sasquatch tales that I've heard, because it was a young man who, I think, he thought he was going to die. He really did. And I don't know that I've ever interviewed anybody who had a better close-up look at a Bigfoot that was about to slam, a TV-sized river rock at someone's head from about 10 feet away, as this gentleman did, and then get chased all the way back to the parking lot on a footpath, and have such a close-up look at this thing that he was able to notice details that most people never get to see of the face and the way that it had been swum across a river to get to him, and its hair was wet and so parted across the side of its head, and he could actually see its ear. And he said it was shaped mostly like a human ear, but kind of small and pointed on the tip. Not like a dog's is pointed, but more like Spock, or an elf. That kind of pointed, but not big, just usually they're hidden under the fur. The rage that it displayed, and it was doing this babbling neo-language thing at him, and there was another, it had companions across the river that were whooping and shouting things and also making this babbling neo-language.
Well, where was this report filed from?
I was just about to say, because you won't believe it, it was in Chicago, in the preserves along the Des Plaines River, barely a mile east of O'Hare Airport.
Wow. What did he do to piss it off so bad?
Well, he surprised it, I think. He had been taking a bike ride, and he sat down to enjoy the sunrise coming over the river, and when he did that, he saw this thing and was observing it, and then he realized he'd sat in a patch of ragweed and had to sneeze. And just startling it was enough, that startling it at such close range, I believe, was, what probably did it. And he changed places, and it was looking for him. It found him and then started chasing him. It was, and I don't find Bigfoots or Sasquatch as terrifying as the dogmen say, or, some of the other, like the Mothman. They seem a lot more friendly and they seem, emphasis on the word seem, friendly and more easygoing, but I think there are a lot of encounters where people can tell you when you surprise them or rile them up, they can get very
I'm one of them. My experience, it was exactly that.
Really?
And it was one of the most terrifying things I've ever experienced in my life.
Oh, do tell.
Base of Mount Shasta. We were trying to get up on the mountain. We were the first ones up a logging road in the first week of April. We had to dig through some snowbanks to get up to the top of the road. The first thing we noticed at the end of the road, there was a cul-de-sac, and right as you were leaving the logging road and going into the turnaround area, it was a stone wheel about 2.5 feet tall that looked like something out of the comic BC with a hole in the middle. And there was one of those orange construction streamers that had been tied around that and then had been stretched across the road and tied to a little sapling, which we thought was pretty strange.
Yeah.
We wanted to get up and actually go up on the mountain, so we hiked about 1/8 of a mile or so, maybe a little further, through the the edge of tree line. Basically, we were probably up around 11,000 feet, and big, huge firs and cedars. And we broke through to where we thought, we would then be able to just walk the few hundred yards and then actually start going up because it's very delineated where the volcano actually starts going up.
Mm-hmm.
The whole base on that southwestern side was ringed by a huge, extremely dense hedge of, I'm not sure if it was madrona or mountain huckleberry, but an extremely ancient, tough, little tiny twig you couldn't break. And you couldn't even it was so dense, you couldn't even put your arm into the hedge. And it was, 6-7 feet tall in places, a little shorter in other places. And so we were kind of wandering around, wondering how we're going to get through this thing. We were trying to see if there was an edge, and we smelled this horrendous human, musky, skunky, nasty smell. And of course,
I know
blamed
that
it on
smell,
my buddy. And right after I said that, something not more than 100 feet. It was really hard to tell now. This is back in '79, but something let out the loudest sound I've ever heard a physical living thing make. I've described it as sounding like a cross between an elephant, a mountain, or a lion and a steam engine, an angry steam train. And first we heard kind of a questioning sound, then we heard the scream, and it was obvious, who the hell are you, And it started coming through the hedge at us. Obviously bipedal, crash, 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 crash. And I don't know what happened the next 20 minutes. The next thing I know, we're halfway down the mountain. My buddy's almost skidding off the dirt road off of, hundreds of foot cliff. And I'm punching to get him to stop. And it was one of the most terrifying things I've ever experienced. Amazing, actually.
What do you think happened during those 20 minutes?
I have no
were
idea.
you running during that time, or you really?
Either I blacked out just from sheer terror, or there's some missing time or something there.
Wow.
I don't know. He doesn't know either to this day. We still are just scratch our heads when we think about it. He remembers actually getting into the van and taking off. I don't even remember that. All I remember is being a good distance down the road.
Yikes. Yeah. Well, if people talk about, and this is something I tried to discuss at great length in my book too, because I haven't seen too many lengthy treatments of it, is something, some people call it the Oz factor. Some people will experience it as a different colored light, or a somewhat solid mist that stops all electronics and things like that. And these states do often occur in conjunction with a sighting of an unknown creature, where your mind is just, sometimes there's missing time. Usually people will describe it as being enveloped in this kind of wall of silence, or a zone of fear, and all the crickets, you can't hear the crickets and the birds anymore. It's all blotted out, that kind of thing.
I've had a few cases where people describe that, just an unearthly, eerie silence.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I really don't. I don't remember going down through the woods. I don't remember getting in the van. I don't remember taking off and doing the top switchbacks. He remembers getting in the van and driving, and I don't know. It's just one of those just weird events, and one of the weirdest events ever in my life. I mean,
Let's do our break.
Really say that,
guys. Break. We got more to come on Monsters, the Weird Ones, with Gene and Chris and Linda. You're in
Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails T-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo tote bag, all sorts of T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great T-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. You go to store.theparacast.com, stop by, and take a shopping tour.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest priced filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to GoBerkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com.
By now you know that wireless technology like cell phones do in fact pose dangers to the health and privacy of everyone. Block-It Pocket's wide range of products are unmatched in providing the protection you deserve. No scare tactics, just common sense. BlockItPocket.com offers quality American-made options to alleviate and eliminate these invisible dangers. Learn more at BlockItPocket.com or call 888-315-9618. BlockItPocket.com, enhancing health and privacy.
Looking for that edge during those intimate moments? We see many ads for enhancement, but the side effects include death. At GCN Team, we should change the Healthy Body, Brain, and Heart Pack to the Healthy Libido Pack. The brain and heart are not the only organs that require a healthy vascular system. For proper blood flow at the right moment, go to GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203. That's 877-878-4203.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
Okay, so it's monster lore all the time on the Paracast. And I know we have a few questions from listeners, Chris. Maybe dig them up before we go on with Linda Godfrey and see what we can do and what we can chase up.
Okay, here's a good one. Do you know of any paranormal type reports that consist of someone witnessing someone else who was witnessed to or is somehow experientially interacting with the paranormal without that primary witness know that they're being watched? Like a secondary witness to an event that can, I guess, confirm what the primary witness is saying. I think that's where he's going. This is a question from Jeff Davis, who's been a long-time listener of the Paracast.
Yeah. So, like, somebody would say, well, a Bigfoot threw a rock at me at First and North in, downtown Wakahuchi. And the second person writes in and says, I saw Bigfoot throwing a rock at this person on First and North in downtown Wakahuchi. Oh, so, okay. I haven't that I can think of. I mean, there are plenty of times where there's more than one witness, and especially like when there are 2 people or 3 people driving in a car at night. That's fairly frequent where something will happen, and it can be a really unusual sighting, not Not that there's anything usual about something running across the road on hind legs when it shouldn't be doing that. But, for instance, I had one story about a wolf dog type creature jumping in front of a car, but it was glowing blue, which is something I'd never encountered before. And yet both the husband and the wife saw it. And I talk at some length in the book, too, about hallucinations, the nature of hallucinations and shared hallucinations, which aren't really supposed to exist, because if you can have a shared hallucination, then you're also arguing for, which a lot of skeptics like to use as an answer, you're also arguing for some form of telepathy, which most skeptics will also deny. So, it can get very confusing. But I have not had unrelated people.
Witnesses, yeah.
Witnessing something that is happening to someone else, at the same moment.
Yeah, I would think in this particular realm of investigation and research, that would be fairly infrequent, if ever, because these events tend to happen in isolated areas to individuals who are by themselves, or maybe with somebody else, possibly two people. Even more than 2 or 3 people witnessing something, I think, in your realm is fairly rare. Whereas in UFO investigations, I've had plenty of cases where I get a call from somebody that says, "You won't believe what just flew over my house," and 5 minutes later you'll get somebody else who's a few miles down the road and say, "You won't believe what just flew over my house." I've had a number of those.
Yeah, and it is different, I think, with the UFOs. There are more sightings of them. People are maybe more familiar with maybe when something should be a UFO, and I'm not sure they're as loath to report them. You have this other aspect of the unreported incidents, where I still feel that even with all of the explosions of shows, there is still a huge majority that are never reported to anyone. So what are the odds that if you have 2 people, one is the experiencer, one is the witness from afar, that both of them are going to fall into that camp of people that, yes, we would report it, that greatly reduces your odds. It could happen more frequently than we know, but unless they both report it, going against the odds, each of them,
right,
then we're not going to know.
Yeah. Well, the good example would be the church case where the couple witnessed a transformation in front of them. Do you know, did they mention anybody else being able to see this? Was it something, it was exclusively for just the 2 of them? Did anybody else in the congregation react? Or?
Yes, and maybe this would be an example. I hadn't thought of that. But, the thing rose up just as and the pastor happened to be right there and stuck his Bible at it and gave it sort of a command, biblical style command, which sort of stopped it in its tracks.
That sounds almost like the Constantine TV show, where John Constantine, this rumpled Great Britain type character, he gets in there and he says some kind of incantation, and the monster goes away.
Yeah, this wasn't an incantation, and the monster didn't go away. It just kind of stopped it momentarily. It just said something like, "Satan, you have no authority here," was, I believe, what he said. And because of the point in the church service, there was a group of elders right up there at the same time, and they tackled it, took it down on a bench, it turned back into the woman, and then they carted her away. There's still more to it than that, but other people, they knew other people saw it, but there was sort of this, it was a very small kind of conservative congregation that they didn't talk about things, and the husband and wife said that they would kind of ask people and they'd say, "Oh, well, did something happen?" Something happened, but I don't want to talk about it, was sort of the culture that was there. And there were lots of other things that happened. Following this, there were very scary poltergeist incidents within the church building itself, and other things happening. The woman was taken somewhere for werewolf rehab or what, I don't know. But they could never.
Rehab?
I just made that up. Made that up. It's a joke.
Shave that woman.
But you know, and again, everything.
It sounds like what they're doing at the Republican convention, where they're saying they should just string up Hillary Clinton. String her up. Arrest her.
Well, I'm sure there will be an equally vociferous crowd at the next one too. They all tend to do the same thing, but it wasn't even really like that. It was can't talk about this, and that's what when I talked to the minister, he said we don't talk about things that happened in our private service. And I hadn't even asked him anything really specific. I just said I'd like to talk about something that happened in your congregation back in such and such a place. And he just closed up like a, stone fortress, and that was that.
Well, then it could have been, someone that just had a really bad morning. Maybe their husband really got him, angry about something, about the family dog, maybe. You just never know. I mean, in some of this stuff too, it just smacks of the shape-shifting aspect of it really fascinates me.
Right. Because it's much more like a shapeshifter, like a Navajo shapeshifter or a Druid type transformation than, Jack Nicholson, Lon Chaney, Hollywood type corpuscle physical change. It's very, very different.
Yeah, shape-shifting is a fascinating subject, and having a real fascination for the trickster archetype, I was very amazed to find that almost every one of these trickster types around the world all can shapeshift, which I found universal. The commonality is very interesting.
Well, I think of shapeshifting, the TV show True Blood, where someone is going to become a wolf, either because they're a shapeshifter or a werewolf. They wouldn't become like the Hollywood version, the original Hollywood version of a wolf, where it was a guy with grizzly face and hair and claws and everything. It was a real wolf.
Yeah, and that's more what they said this was. And that when it went away, it was just instantaneous. The fur was gone. She was back. Her clothing was all intact. It wasn't like she had to swell up and rip out of her clothing or anything. It was just more like something that came over her and was part of her yet covered her. And then when it was done, it was gone. She was back as she was.
Yeah. It sounds like she definitely didn't like the sermon.
Well, yeah, it evidently clashed with something inside her.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, here's another question from Jeff Davis, paranormal adept, who's been a member of the Paracast now for 4 years and 1 month and 1 day. Check that out.
And remember, we're doing this show a couple of days before it's broadcast, so now it's
1 month, 5 days. How's that? Okay. Do you think that any of the individual paranormal imagery that the reporting witnesses convey exists independent of those witnesses? In other words, are these real independent creatures that exist exactly as they appear to the witness?
Before we have that answer, I'm going to put you in cliffhanger mode here. Okay, because it's going to be like a reality TV show. Next week, you will get the answer to that. Or is it really the ghost of Lon Chaney Jr. who caused all this? The book is Monsters Among Us. The author is Linda Godfrey. And we got a lot more to come and more listener questions with Gene and Chris. And Linda, you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids, and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Are you living your passion? Are you pumped to go to work because you get to talk about or work with or do the things that interest you the most? Is working, playing, and relaxing one and the same? As long as you're working for someone else, you'll never be living entirely true to yourself and your passion. I'm Pharmacist Keith. Let me show you how you can work around your current schedule, create the extra income so you can live your passion. Visit radio.recordedvideo.com. That's radio.recordedvideo.com. radio.recordedvideo.com.
Are you worried about how dangerous the world has become? In these days of terrorist attacks, natural disasters, or even a future collapse, you need to be medically prepared to keep your family safe. I'm Joe Alton, MD of store.doomandbloom.net, where you'll find an entire line of uniquely designed medical kits and supplies for when help is not on the way. For everything from individual first aid kits to the ultimate family medical bag, go to store.doomandbloom.net today. That's store.doomandbloom.net. You'll be glad you...
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Well, that's Linda Lugosi. That's enough of that stuff. Let's get back to our stories. Chris, you asked a question. Linda, do you need the question asked again, or are you ready?
Well, I think what he was asking was, whether perhaps all of these manifestations are projections from our human consciousness, or are they something that someone else would see? And I do think the idea of the shared hallucinations being pretty much impossible unless you believe in a whole host of other psi factors speaks to that very well. But, then you start going down that wormhole of that everybody's talking about these days, which is quantum physics and mechanics, and the idea of people sort of creating their own reality. If those things are true, well, then we're sort of creating everything. Now, the interesting thing is that some of these theories that are coming up, and they continue to advance and be proven in small ways, really lead you to this very conclusion, that we participate in our universe in to a much greater degree than we would expect. We tend to view ourselves as these little, meat shells walking around with stuff happening to us, but not according to many of the latest physics formulas that are beginning to take consciousness into account as part of their form, which gets really tricky. And I believe that the physicists are very divided on this. Some won't touch it because it's too ooky spooky. Others are saying, yeah, we need to go here because that's where they're leading. But for instance, one of my favorites is the many interacting worlds. There's a quantum physicist, his name is Howard Wiseman, and it's probably a couple of years old by now even, because these things are moving very quickly. He's one who believes that there are many intersecting worlds and that they're almost what you call ghost universes, because the same way that we expect, if we see a ghost, it seems like it's interacting with us right in our own world. We don't think it's off somewhere in some faraway dimension. It's right there. And this is how we would be perceiving many of these things that aren't ordinarily visible to us. They can interact, and it's been proven they can interact under certain conditions in a minute way, in a mini scale, a micro scale. They haven't been able to prove the macro scale that would be needed for us to see something as large as, say, a Bigfoot or whatever. But the other interesting aspect of this formula was that it predicted these worlds would be as real as ours, but older, which is interesting because it's a lot like what Native American people that I have interviewed personally from several different tribes have told us. These creatures are here. They can also be in their other world. They're older than us. They're as real as us when they're here. But when they're, it really sounds like an iteration of Dr. Wiseman's amazing theory, which I don't even pretend to understand. I'm hopeless at math and I do not get physics. But I'll believe it when all these very intelligent people tell me that they are creating equations and discovering equations that predict and almost demand all of these factors that people who say, I don't believe anything more than I can see, taste, smell, or hear. And I hear that from people very frequently. I have a number of relatives, for instance, who have said that not too long ago. It's just counteracting that very materialist view.
Right. Well, just hopefully one day they'll smell a Bigfoot, and it's something you don't forget. That's right. I've had that experience several times. Yeah, it's beyond foul. But it's so different, it's a very unique, I think we talked last time I was on about that time that I had a 35-foot long tree limb snapped off in two motions right in front of me in the Kettle Moraine. Right. And went back, and the whole place just reeked of this smell down by this tree where it had happened. And you can't forget, it's like skunkish, but not skunk. It's like a human skunk. That's how I've described it many times. Yeah, it's like mixed with skunk, and there's also sort of an odor of sweet grass sometimes with it mixed in, which makes it just really odd. A couple of months ago, my colleague Sanjay Singhal and I were checking out a trail we hadn't been on before, and I found a tree that just looked like it would be something really good for big things to hide in. And I walked off the trail a second and looked around behind it, and I was finding what looked like little hairs stuck in the bark and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, this most overwhelming, I call it scent sliming, because it's like something just slimed my whole head. It was like in my mouth and in my nose, and breathing it, that same exact smell. And I just kind of bent over and started gagging. And then Sanjay, who was standing about 10 feet away from me on the trail, it reached him, and then he did the same thing, and he actually felt worse. We had to leave. He really felt sick from it. So I'm not even sure that's their actual bodily smell, but perhaps something they can project in a way. I don't know. Oh, that's interesting. Wow, I never thought about that. I always thought that they, just they'd gone without a shower and were able. It's almost like something being sprayed. I think you're right. Yeah. There is an aspect of that, almost like a skunk spraying. That's the only thing that I can equate it to as a comparison. Mm-hmm. Yes. And hence the name skunk ape. That's right. One of the reasons why I think the southern versions have gained that name, because they're supposed to be especially foul, living in a human environment. Of course, olfactory stuff tends to be a little bit more powerful, I think, or impactful. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, when it rains here, I have a rug that a stray cat got in and pissed all over one corner of the rug, which I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. And normally in this dry environment, you don't smell anything. But as soon as it rains outside, I can get a slight whiff of that. And we're talking something 4 or 5 years ago that happened. Yeah. So anyway, moving along here, I do want to ask a couple more questions here from our listeners. This is kind of gets into, as he calls it, the single causal paranormal toe, or theory of everything. He's wondering, in your estimation, considering all the research that you've done, do you lean towards a single causal phenomenon or theory of everything for the types of experiences that you relate in your books? This, in essence, probably being either a single aspect of our natural environment, or of which two or more independent beings, monster and human, interact briefly. Or do you think that possibly a single aspect of ourselves, consciousness, allows for or is directly responsible for an interactive quasi-dimension of reality known as the experiential paranormal? So this is kind of along the lines of what we were just talking about. Mm-hmm. Do you think that a person is interacting with something that is purely physical, or do you think, and if so, which types of cases? Do you think there's differences between types of phenomenon, or do you think we're dealing with something that is fairly consistent in terms of its interaction with consciousness? Well, there have been a number of researchers lately, and I tend to concur that all of these different things, the Mothman, the Bigfoot, the Wolfman, the sea creatures, are manifestations of a global or sort of everywhere consciousness that is other than our own separate differentiated. So you're saying there is a connection somehow between
Well, somehow this other global consciousness. Some people think of it as maybe the mind of the Earth Mother. I've heard it put that way. Gaia's mind, or the great Earth Spirit. It is something that is everywhere, but it can interact with the human mind to either help us project something or to project itself into a form that it finds in our own minds. And I have actually a pretty good experience to justify that, which is when I was working on, I did co-authored the Weird Wisconsin and authored the Weird Michigan books for the Barnes & Noble Weird US series. And I had to find a certain number of really haunted places. And I found this one place in Michigan where it was Manistee, Michigan. I went into town and asked the local historian, who happened just to have a little shop on Main Street, where was a good haunted place.
Let's find out the answer in our next segment.
Yes.
Where is that haunted place? Tell me. With Linda and Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast. The award-winning Graphic Converter 10, the universal genius for photo editing apps on your Mac. Join over 1.5 million loyal users for the Swiss Army Knife app. It gives you all the features that you expect, and most important, it's easy to use. You can get it for just $39.95 from www.lemkesoft.com. That's www.lemkesoft.com. As you know, neighbors, web hosting can be pretty cheap, but not all hosting is the same. DreamHost wins Best of Awards year after year. You get unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and even the low-cost plans put your sites on high-performance SSDs. Want to know more about what DreamHost has to offer? Go to technightowl.com/host. Once again, that's technightowl.com/host.
This is a warning to all household pests, to all cockroaches, spiders, ants, rodents, and other pests. If you've just made yourself at home in someone else's home, you'd better hope the owners never hear about Terminix, because Terminix has the know-how and the means to do whatever it takes to remove you from that home. Terminix has over 85 years of experience exterminating invaders like you. And right now, they're making it easier than ever for homes to be protected by offering a free pest estimate to every caller at 1-800-676-1468. Cockroaches, spiders, ants, rodents, and other pests. This is your eviction notice. With one call, Terminix will remove you from the home you've invaded. If you think you can simply come back later, think again. Terminix will protect that home with a 100% satisfaction money-back guarantee, so you can never return. Warning, homeowners are calling Terminix right now for a free pest estimate at 1-800-676-1468. 1-800-676-1468.
Limitations apply. See plan for details.
Attention backpackers, on a budget, why spend $80 to $300 to pump clean survival water? Introducing the Viva Water Pump Kit from Viva Outdoor Products. Super easy to use and super lightweight at only 6.5 ounces, the Viva Water Pump Kit provides high flow rate at 1 ounce per stroke, can be one-hand pumped, and is dependable and affordable at only $24.99, filter not included. Get your Viva Water Pump Kit at viba-odp.com from Viva Outdoor Products.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich? Working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare? Having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom106.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 106.com. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom106.com.
Would you like to receive $250 to $1,000 cash per day? Go to richmoneyrich.com. No website, no selling, no explaining. Just take these simple 2 steps and go to richmoneyrich.com. You can be generating cash in the next 24 hours simply using this system. Good news is, it runs on 100% autopilot and you don't need any experience to get started. It's easy. Get your share of riches and go to richmoneyrich.com. That's richmoneyrich.com. Go now. Brought to you by the Conservative Investor. Current returns not indicative of future results.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
So, Linda Godfrey, author of Monsters Among Us and other books, tell the Paracast listeners, what did this person tell you when you asked about a haunted place?
Well, he pointed me down the street to an old brick building that had been built by a German family. Supposedly, several of the members had died, and they had a bar in the lower level in the olden days, and then they had apartments upstairs. And there was a teenage member of that family that was supposed to have died from diphtheria or something and still lived in the basement. His name was William, so they called him Basement Billy. Now, I never heard of Basement Billy. I had nothing in my mind about it. They didn't know I was coming. It was just, a lark. So there was no preparation or setup for it. And the owner of the building, the present owner, took me down to the basement where he was supposed to live, although he was also seen in his period costume, sometimes wandering around the parking lot up outside on the street. And that basement had nothing in it. It was a dirt floor basement, empty. There was one light bulb way at the end of it and one right behind us. And I had to turn off the lights so we could stand in pitch black to see if Basement Billy would appear, because I had to do something, to research it for the book. Well, he did. Much to my wondering eyes, should appear this sphere. And it came out of nowhere. It was a low basement, so it couldn't have been more than 7 feet off the floor, maybe 10 feet away from me. It was about the size of a basketball, glowing but not emitting light to light anything up. And I saw it, and I couldn't believe it. It felt to me like it was sentient, like it was interested or something. I couldn't believe it. I blinked. I looked away. It was still there. And I had my camera in my hands, and I was too amazed to. By the time I realized my camera was there, then it started fading away. And the woman who was with me, the owner of the building, also saw Basement Billy. But she saw the young man completely dressed in the period clothing, and we were both gasping for having seen it at such close range. But I'm thinking, because in her mind, her consciousness, living there and knowing the story, she had a preformed picture in her head of what he looked like, that somehow whatever that electromagnetic energy was, and I don't know that it was actually any spirit of a young man who died there, but it was some form of electromagnetic energy, was able to project itself to conform to what she knew. And because I had just walked in, I had no clue as to what Basement Billy looked like or anything. I just saw the pure energy form. So
why do you think it was electromagnetic in nature?
Well, because just in general, in our world, you have electricity and magnetism working as general forces when you have these unexplained lights, and they're so often related to geological formations and things that would create electromagnetic waves. So it's my general assumption, and it may not be right, but whatever the energy was, it was able to interact with each of us according to our own pre-held conception.
So there's a classic example of consciousness putting the details on what may at the core be an unusual event, but the actual details and the appearance of that will vary between witnesses.
Right. So I think personally that's always been something that seemed as if it could be a likely theory of everything if you can explain all the different creatures that way, and the difference in appearance between quote unquote ghost manifestations. That's as close as I've been able to come.
Okay.
But it still doesn't throw out the other worlds, because we don't know. Maybe these energies are coming from other worlds. Maybe they're not an emanation of the earth. Maybe they're something that's coming through an opening from somewhere else. That's what we really don't know.
You see, one of the things I see when we talk about this, and Chris and I have been talking about, alternate realities and things like that. When you go to a so-called quote-unquote mainstream scientist and you say, hey there, we're looking into strange creatures, and you start giving them the multiverse and you start giving them the portals and the other realities, they look at you, their eyes glaze over, and they say, what the heck is that? So how do you sell it to them, or can you?
To the physicists or to
the mainstream scientists? In terms of a physicist, they can say multiverse, all that stuff, but that's a theory. We're giving them reality. Okay, we got the creatures here, and they might be from there.
Right. And from what I understand, from what I've read and different interviews I've seen and things like that, some of that glazed look is purposeful. They just do not want to discuss it because it gets them in hot water with their own colleagues and affects papers they can publish and that kind of thing, because some of them are not up to par with say, Dr. Wiseman or other people, and each of them has their own little leading edge that they're trying to explore and discover. Maybe they don't always want to affirm other people's, there are lots of different human reasons for that. But I think that it probably, as these other theories become better and better known, I'm hoping that may change a little bit. The harder part is bringing it out and not having your average reader glaze over, because you say the word quantum mechanics and then they go, oh my God, I failed physics in high school. Oh, shut off. That's not possible. They're just making this up. And, I talk about portals quite a bit in the book. And in fact, that was going to be the original title, except then the creature encounter sort of took over. So we changed it. But, as far as the portals go, I do make the point that it seems likely, given the number of mathematical formulas that predict something like a portal might truly be possible and is actually demanded in some cases, should be a pretty good persuasive point to people, but they still don't really see that, and the other thing is that, okay, let's say there is such a thing as a portal. At this time, we have no experimental way or even experiential way of finding out which of those theories. Is it many interacting worlds? Is it a bubble universe? Is it is it some ghost universe right next to ours? What is it? Just our minds? We don't know. A few people have claimed to have walked into something like a portal or seen into one, but it's not anything I believe. I think they're unverified, and we just don't have a way of sending somebody in. And remember that Twilight Zone, A Little Girl Lost, where the dad went halfway into the portal to save his little girl who'd fallen into it, and only because this wise scientist was holding onto his legs was he able to be pulled back out of it. We don't know if that's what would happen, and so we just don't have the evidence to tell.
There was a British TV series, Primeval, that was on, I guess, from 2007 to 2011. There was a version made in Canada and a version made in the UK. And in both cases, what happened here is you'd have these portals. You'd see these portals show up in the middle of a city in the UK. And out of it would come some kind of prehistoric creature. And of course, none of it made any sense. You go in there and you'd fight off the prehistoric creature, then return. Or they close up.
That was all time-based, though, wasn't it, Gene?
It was time-based mostly, although I got the impression it was also reality-based, not just another time, but another place. We've got more to come. With Gene and Chris and Linda Godfrey not going into a dimensional portal, at least not yet. You're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Are you retired or facing retirement and you're afraid your income is going to be less than you'd like? I'm Pharmacist Keith. Dr. Wallach, the Dead Doctors Don't Lie guy, and I want to show you a low-cost way to create your own business working around your current schedule, creating extra income that will last for years to come by joining Dr. Wallach's crusade, spreading his message of better health. To learn more, visit radio.recordedvideo.com. That's radio.recordedvideo.com, radio.recordedvideo.com, or call 866-257-3105 for a recorded message.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists, get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Sling bow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of sling bow. A new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Dangerous blood clot device alert. If you or a loved one had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to your heart or lungs and suffered an injury, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, and even death. These dangerous blood clot devices can break, and the metal fragments can travel to your heart or lungs, causing serious injuries. If you or a loved one suffered organ damage or other injuries from an IVC filter, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Act now. Time is limited to file a claim. For a free consultation and free information, call Injury Help Desk at 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. 800-478-1507. This is an advertisement. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. InjuryHelpDesk.com is responsible for this advertisement. Principal office, Las Vegas, Nevada. Paid non-attorney spokesperson. Injury Help Desk is responsible for this advertisement. Principal office, Las Vegas, Nevada. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention prescription antibiotic drug users. Have you or a loved one suffered an aortic dissection, aortic aneurysm, or abdominal aortic aneurysm after taking the prescription antibiotic drugs Levaquin or Avelox? These popular antibiotic drugs have been prescribed more than 80 million times since 2004, and medical studies show an increased risk of the following injuries: aortic dissection, aortic aneurysm, and abdominal aortic aneurysm. If you or a loved one used the prescription antibiotic drugs Levaquin or Avelox and suffered from aortic dissection, aortic aneurysm, or abdominal aortic aneurysm, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Act now. Time is limited to file a claim. You may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. For a free consultation and free information, call Injury Help Desk at 800-823-3851. 800-823-3851. 800-823-3851.
Hi, this is James Fox from Chasing UFOs. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Dimensional portal commentaries.
I like this subject.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because I think I've found one. In fact, I would be willing to bet that the average person, if they visited this place just a handful of times, would experience something unusual, and it's very location specific.
Tell me where. Let's go. Let's mount an expedition.
I took Rosemary there and Guiley, and we both had a shared experience, which I mentioned on the show a number of times.
Oh, yes. Of course, Rosemary will be back from the other reality in 2,000 years.
Well, it wasn't anything like that. It's just a place where there's a doorway, and it seems to be an entrance and exit point for a lot of different things.
I want to go there. I'm going to see her next month. I'll ask her about it.
Yeah. Well, what a perfect person to have as a witness,
Yeah. Can't be.
Because you talk about someone that's been there and done that and seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
After we had our little kind of shared experience, and then we went back to the house where we were staying, and during the conversation, she made the comment, well, I hope it didn't follow us here. And a plant jumped off the windowsill into the 2 feet out into the room, and boom, on the floor.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Be careful what you wish for.
What did it look like, though? Can you tell us what it looked like?
Well, it was one of those things where it wasn't really fully visible. It was more of a presence in the atmosphere. It was shimmering. It came right up, right in our faces. And then another one, it was a smaller one, went around us, our feet, or around our ankles, and curved around us to behind, and it appeared to go behind us, I think.
Wow.
But we both just stood there frozen, and then kind of looked at each other sideways and said simultaneously, "I think it's time to leave."
Wow. So, but you didn't see into it, like it didn't.
It was about 5 to 6 feet tall. It seemed almost humanoid in terms of proportion, but it wasn't really visible. It was more like an energy form that we both were able to. I think anybody that had been standing there would have been able to detect it. It wasn't something that was only detected psychically, or there was something of physicality to it. It was almost like something with a faulty cloaking device, would be one way to describe it. It was at night. There was definitely shimmering. There was some sort of kind of a silvery, whitish reflection coming off of it, and it came across the expanse where we were standing. It rushed at us, and it was there in a second, 2 seconds. It went at least 100 feet, maybe 75 feet, and was almost instantly right there in our faces. Now, normally when I enter into this particular location, I sit down, clear my mind of thoughts, kind of introduce myself. I work my way into the location. We just went in there like bulls in a china shop, I mean, not, we weren't yelling and laughing and screaming, but we just walked right in. And normally, especially at night, I don't do that. I take my time, I ease myself into the situation, and I've never had something confrontational, shall we say, or confronting me, like I did the night that I went in there with Rosemary. And it was fairly near where I lived for 13 years, and I did go in there on a number of occasions and have experiences, but they were much more benign. They seemed to be interested, almost, interested in the fact that we were there, but not like, who the hell are you? What are you doing here? That was the feeling that I got, and I think I can say fairly assuredly that Rosemary got the same exact impression. And we both compared notes later, and she experienced pretty much exactly what I experienced.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, you should talk to her about it. It's the
I will.
In the Baca Grande subdivision where I lived in Colorado. It was, okay. And then the plant jumping off the windowsill, that was the capper.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I bet you both just jumped like higher than the plant did.
No, we just looked at each other and went, oh, no. And the owners of the house, the wife was not very happy about it.
Oh, I imagine
she made me do a complete cleansing of the house before we left.
Wow. Yeah. Those clumsy parapsychologists at it again.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things, where I went out of my carefully established protocols that I had for the place for a number of years. Oh, well. Wow. There's a little something to be, I think there's a lesson there for the listeners. If you do know of a place that has a reputation, whether it's a haunted site or whether it's some sort of portal-esque type location, I think it would be advisable to ease into the location as opposed to just storming in. I think that unless that's the kind of reaction that you want to elicit from whatever is there.
I have a crazy comment or question here. Does the belief that some place may be a portal, does that belief influence the potential reality?
According to quantum mechanics, it does. Yeah. Because, the way that works is that in the microcosm, you take two little particles that are, and I mean little like pieces of an atom, different particles, and you mingle them physically, and then you separate them, and no matter how far separated they will always react as if they were still connected to each other.
It's David Bohm, and supported by the Bell's theorem.
Yes, yeah, and so it's the thing, and the thing is that if they further went on and conducted experiments to show that one result or another one would happen, and this is complete fact, it's not just theory, they discovered that human observation and human thought determined these particles are actually little waves, and what determines the final outcome is if they sort of collapse into a final form. And I mean, this can get very complicated. I'm just giving you
you're mixing theories here.
I am mixing theories a little bit. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, you're talking about the Copenhagen interpretation, Heisenberg.
Well,
which the Bell's theorem and David Bohm earlier it came up with the same math, but Bohm's theory of acausality or non-local sort of what I think Einstein referred to as spooky action at a distance.
Right, which was
instead of an indeterminacy of a particle or wave, only a particle if you're observing it. Bohm said, "Well, that's not correct. It's actually instantaneous effect of particles that have some sort of relationship. As soon as you do something to one, it affects all particles."
The other, right?
Yeah. So
right, exactly. And thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's a much better explanation. I was just trying to jump over it to get to the place where the upshot is that it can lead to a belief that our observation of things allows them to be or causes them to collapse into whatever form they're going to take.
Right. So, well, yeah, it causes change.
To put it crudely,
it causes change. In other words, the very act of observing a process changes it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I mean, again, it's even the best physicists don't still fully understand it. So, I'm sure I'll be long gone before they do. But I just love to read about it. It's just fascinating to me that it just makes everything magical.
Well, yeah, and science is slowly validating things that shamans and adepts for centuries, millennia have always kind of had I think more of a subcultural theory about. But these subcultural beliefs and theories are slowly being validated by science, which leads me to a really good question from Canna Karras, who's also been a listener and poster at forum.theparacast.com, our question bank. Can ask questions.
And we'll break and get the question on the other side. So this will be our final segment coming up. We're talking about monsters and portals and other realities and getting lost somewhere in a place you didn't expect, maybe? Linda Godfrey with Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
We also have swag. We have all these exclusive Paracast things that you can buy. We've got 60 or so different items, and entails T-shirts, sleeves for notebook computers, iPad cases, mouse pads, the Paracast Jumbo tote bag, all sorts of T-shirts and jackets and stuff like that for men and women. We have a Paracast aluminum water bottle. All this stuff, you go to store.theparacast.com, store.theparacast.com. What makes it special is that the items are the best quality, great T-shirts, fabrics, and they have our official logo on them. That's what makes them special, in multiple sizes and colors. We even have stuff for children, stuff for women, stuff for men. We have all sorts of sizes, like small up to X large. A lot of good stuff. That's the swag from the Paracast. You go to store.theparacast.com, stop by, and take a shopping tour.
Would you like to receive $250 to $1,000 cash per day? Go to richmoneyrich.com. No website, no selling, no explaining. Just take these simple 2 steps and go to richmoneyrich.com. You can be generating cash in the next 24 hours simply using this system. Good news is, it runs on 100% autopilot, and you don't need any experience to get started. It's easy. Get your share of riches and go to richmoneyrich.com. That's richmoneyrich.com. Go now. Brought to you by the Conservative Investor. Current returns not indicative of future results.
This is an alert. If your business or church is building this year, you're about to pay more than you should. This could mean thousands of dollars more for your office, retail space, church, or warehouse. A General Steel building can save you as much as half the cost and time of similar conventional construction. And we're offering rebates of up to $20,000 to help you build today. Call General Steel for free information that could save you thousands. Call 866-91-STEEL. 866-91-STEEL. 866-91-STEEL.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Hello?
Congratulations.
For what?
For losing all that weight. How'd you do it so fast?
ASAP.
ASAP what? What's that mean?
Are you ready to get as skinny as possible, as soon as possible, as simple as possible, and as sexy as possible?
I'm listening.
Then get with the ASAP program. It's real and it works. No smooth talk, no slick advertising, and no exaggerated claims of success.
I've got to know more.
Welcome to ASAP, as slim as possible. Whether you have 10, 20, or 50 pounds to lose, ASAP is your weight loss answer. ASAP targets the abnormal fat reserves and makes them available to be burned as fuel and contains no caffeine or hormones. Order ASAP at wholesale prices or join the team to share the business with others. Visit GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. Lose weight and look great with ASAP, as slim as possible.
Would you like to receive $250 to $1,000 cash per day? Go to richmoneyrich.com. No website, no selling, no explaining. Just take these simple 2 steps and go to richmoneyrich.com. You can be generating cash in the next 24 hours simply using this system. Good news is, it runs on 100% autopilot, and you don't need any experience to get started. It's easy. Get your share of riches and go to richmoneyrich.com. That's richmoneyrich.com. Go now. Brought to you by the Conservative Investor. Current returns not indicative of future results.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So we're on our final segment with Linda Godfrey, author of Monsters Among Us. I think one of the most fun-filled sessions we've ever had with her. Chris, you had a question coming up from a listener.
Well, here you go. This is the $64 million question. Linda, do you agree that we look at these phenomena like a cat looking at an iPhone? In other words, will we never understand them? I think what he meant to say is, will we ever understand them?
You know, we have such a higher understanding of technology and the universe and all of these things just from the past several hundred years, although, I mean, that's unless there were ancient aliens, of course. But I mean, in our own civilization, we've progressed so much that it's, you know, as we go into computers being quantum computers and having powers hitherto undreamed of, I really think that there's a good chance we're going to get to this level of understanding that, you know, you and I wouldn't even be able to conceive of right now. I wish that I were younger to be able to live and see all that. You know, I wish I were maybe 20 right now. That would be great. I mean, there's no way of predicting it, but when you consider how fast the information is moving just exponentially, I think it's possible, you know.
So the more we know, the more we don't know is you know, because of technology and the data derived from the technology, you're saying that that will overwhelm the mystery at some point.
Well, I mean, that's exactly how I feel right now. The more I know I don't know. But And I don't, I mean, I am a Christian. I don't believe that we're going to, in this Earth's technology, understand God, say, or all of his mysteries. But I think that we will understand a lot more of it.
Wait a minute, God, his. Wait a minute, you're getting all gender specific here. What's up with that? What's wrong with the goddess?
I'm using his in the general sense of humankind, as it's often used. His, her.
Just checking.
His, her, all encompassing. Yeah, I don't think God can be pinned down to a gender of any type. So I foresee just incredible advances, but who knows if we'll be able to live long enough as a civilization or what will happen.
Yeah, the next 4 years are going to be really interesting.
That's for sure. Yep. So, I mean, even in to think we're going to some of the space things that are happening now, that it's getting out of the hands of completely government control to some of these private space agencies that are thinking much differently about sending contacts and people here and there that NASA's kind of given up on. I see great hope there, because every time we send anything out, we learn so much more.
Yeah. Well, not to mention China and India and other countries are getting into the fray, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a much more global project.
Yeah. What have we not covered that you'd like to cover about this current book, and also some of the projects that you have coming up?
Well, one thing that I thought was very interesting that kind of kept recurring in my research that I had not been so aware of before was just these general forms of things that look like mists. And maybe I don't know if it's a little bit like what you and Rosemary experienced, but I've got pictures of them that have come from trail cams where there was a carcass lying on the ground, and then this mist comes and covers it for half an hour, 30 frames or so. And then when the mist lifts, the carcass is gone. There are instances where people have experienced these mists coming over them. I've got one rather lengthy experience from a sheriff's deputy from another county who was sitting in a squad car near a marsh, and he saw this sort of faintly green-colored rolling mist all of a sudden coming over the marsh toward him. He's just looking at it, and it keeps coming and coming, and when it hits his car, all of his squad electronics go out. The computer's gone, the radio, everything that he had just been parking there to catch up on his record keeping. When he checked his watch, he realized that there had been a bit of a time loss as well. And when the thing passed over the squad car, and then everything came back on, and it made a right angle turn, which rolling mists don't generally do, and headed up a path that went into a woods that's known locally as the Haunted Woods. And he actually experienced this a second time at a different marshy and lake location in that same area. And I've had numerous other people report these mist-like things. So that's something that I found really interesting, and I think I will probably continue to pursue that line of inquiry, because they seem again to have that sort of sentience about them, that they're aware somebody's there, they want to go over and experience it or see what it is, and then they leave, and you are left with effects like missing time